do you remember when you heard metal music for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I even really considered it metal though when I first heard it. I mean, I heard like really probably Kiss or maybe something like on the radio, I would say like I don't know, probably Led Zeppelin or something like that on the radio with kind of heavy guitars. But I think the moment that really sparked for me was seeing Kiss live on TV when I was probably about 6 or 7 years old, and just hearing the heavy guitars and the crazy get-ups and all that stuff just really appealed to me. I probably like a million other kids, I felt there was something that they were relating to me, or to somehow I just felt a connection to it. I just was, yeah, it was really a kind of a special moment, almost like, as a kid, just it's like life changing to some extent, because it's, metal's been something that's been a part of my life since then. I kind of considered it more at the time like hard rock or something, because I don't even know if I knew the term heavy metal at like 6 or 7 years old. But from that, I got into Kiss, then I started listening to Queen a lot, and then yeah, those were like my two big ones for a while. I just really liked those heavy guitar tones of, either Kiss, Paul Stanley and Ace Frehley, or like Brian May's guitar tones at times are really heavy. So that was all stuff that kind of like, that was like my gateway, I guess, into metal as a young kid. It just kind of grew from there. It's like I just realized I just like that gong, that really heavy guitar thing. And so the more stuff I heard throughout my life, the more I really got deeper and deeper into it, and trying to find more and more bands that were playing with this heavier style of rock.
So was Kiss also the sort of like spark you to pick up a guitar first, or how did that happen for you and form a band?
Yeah, I mean, Kiss was definitely made me want to play guitar, but I mean, at like, it's hard to say, somewhere between 6 and 9 or something like that. I remember asking for a guitar for Christmas, but it was just like, I ended up just getting like an acoustic guitar. I didn't know enough about music or anything. I knew absolutely nothing. I just knew that when I plucked the guitar, it didn't have the same sound as what I was hearing with Kiss, and other bands I was listening to at the time. So I was, a little frustrated with it, and, you know, knew that something was missing in this, and I just wasn't interested in learning acoustic guitar. I mean, that was like the lamest thing ever at that time I can think of. So it wasn't until probably early 80s when I started really getting into stuff like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and then the speed metal stuff like Exciter, so like early Queensryche, all that stuff. When I really got into that, I started to comprehend more and knew, okay, it's you got to use electric guitar. Yes, you play out of an amp, and you need some kind of distortion pedal to kind of give it that sound. So once I kind of like, I had a paper route probably at 13 years old or something, which was probably 83-ish or somewhere, 84, 83. I can't remember. I can't. But anyway, I saved up my paper route money, got a guitar, and that was, I was just happy because I got the guitar, I got a little amp, and I had a little Rat distortion. To me, I was like super psyched because I was able to get sounds that were like at least close to what, they weren't really close, but to me, they were close to, what metal was and stuff like that. So it was definitely, it was just a long route into kind of figuring out, because I had no musical background in my family. I mean, no one in my family really played any instruments that I know of. It was purely like my personal calling in the family to do this. So I wasn't interested in like going to school and like you know, or like learning music class or nothing like that. Like I was like, this is all lame, you know, like I want to rock out. Like I don't want to just learn like stupid songs on the fucking recorder or, you know, whatever, play the fucking piano. It's like that's all fucking poser instruments. Even as a little kid, I was just like, you know, like those like people that did that, I would consider like they were like geeks or something like that. So it was I had to kind of figure it all out on my own. And luckily, I was originally going to pick up bass. I was going to buy a bass, but then I ended up getting to know a guitar teacher. So I didn't know that they were so similar of an instrument. I knew nothing, and I just started taking guitar lessons. And I bought a guitar because I was like, well, at least I have someone to give me lessons on guitar. And you know, I basically started from like point A of like anything musical. You know, like just you know yeah, it was like super basic, you know. But yeah, so I would say I don't know, 84 or something like that would be like the year that I like got a guitar. And I knew once I got a guitar, you know, I want to play in a band. I'm going to do something. I didn't know I was going to have my own band, but I just knew that I wanted to play in a band. And I wanted to play all these cool songs that I was listening to and connecting to and stuff like that.
So was like Revenant your like first proper band that you had?
Yeah, that's fair to say. Before that, like I would say around it's hard to say for sure 'cause it's so long, but I'll say 84, 85. I was just playing with like very, you know, very primitive, like a few dudes in my high school that played instruments that like metal too, and we would just play covers of I don't know, Dio and um Queensryche and Iron Maiden, like all the simple songs that you could play, like Paranoid, Black Sabbath, and Breaking the Law, stuff like that. Like so, you know, and then I went through like a series of like basically cover bands. A couple of them we tried doing some stuff. There was a band I played in called Black Mass for a little while, which had Ralph Pimentel, who was the drummer on the Old Lady Drivers album that was released on Earache back in the day. And we had a band. We were really influenced by Merciful Fate. I remember they wanted to have like a satanic band. And our singer, though, sounded like the dude from DRI on vocals, you know, so it wasn't like super satanic, but it was still kind of cool. But we only wrote one original, which was the title track, Black Mass, and it was like really bad. I mean, the song just was cheesy as fuck, and like all we were doing was reading the Satanic Bible and putting it to lyrics and stuff like that because we didn't know anything. We just knew that we loved, you know, Merciful Fate and Venom and Old Slayer, and we wanted to do something that was kind of like that. But then from there, I joined this other cover band called Texas, which was like I thought I was joining the big time because it was an actual band that like had, you know, they actually played a bunch of different covers by like Exodus and Anthrax and Metallica and Slayer and Suicidal Tendencies, a lot of that stuff from that early you know, 85, 86 era of aggressive music and stuff. And you know, we were terrible too, but for me it was like a big step to join a band that was already kind of established. They were starting they didn't play any shows yet, but they were working on playing a show. I think we only played one show. I was in the band at like a roller rink, and you know, it actually was pretty good considering how terrible we were as a band. But yeah, and then from that point is where I used to work in a record store called Record Town back in, yeah, it had to have been probably 86, I would say. I was there. And I remember I met Henry Vegian, who was in Revenant, and Jim Plotkin, who plays like an Old Lady Drivers, and I think he has like Flux and a bunch of experimental bands now that he does. But at that time, met those guys from there. They hung out a lot. And also that this other guy Hux that used to hang out with them that ended up getting into like the New York hardcore scene a lot. We you know, got to be friends because they would do like the rounds at the record stores every week, and we had a small import section and stuff, so they would just we were in a mall, and they would just go to a mall and check it out. You know, usually there was nothing there, because even if there was something good there, I usually bought it there, because I'd be the first to see it. So, but I got to know those guys, and I knew Revenant was looking for a guitar player, and I can't remember if they suggested me trying out or if I asked to try out. I probably asked to try out. And, for me, it was a dream come true to play in Revenant, because it was like another step forward, where this was a band that was based on mostly playing originals. We only played a few covers. Like when I was in the band, we played mostly hardcore covers, like Septic Death. We played Control. We played Eye for an Eye by COC. Your Mistake by call Agnostic Front. There was one other one we played too. I can't remember. But anyway, we played a lot of hardcore covers, but the band itself was based around more really influenced by what like Voivod was doing then, and bands like Wehrmacht were doing, and Cryptic Slaughter and Sacrifice. There were just a bunch of like killer new bands that were coming out that were really an inspiration to us in Revenant. And it was just a great place, because we were basically like just a smorgasbord of like styles, like, because we were heavily influenced by punk and hardcore, but also heavily influenced by the underground brewing death metal scene at that time. And still, we still like some of the more aggressive sides of thrash and stuff at that point. So it was like we were just like a melting pot of all the stuff that we liked. And luckily, we kind of, were able to do some great stuff, some demos or whatever, and it really started to become we really started to become connected to the underground and stuff throughout the world. And I met so many great like pen pals and just assorted people from being in Revenant and stuff. It's always something that's a real special, nostalgic thing for me to look at, and I'm proud to be part of that. And for me, it was like the beginnings of what, like it helped me decide where I want my future to be musically, because we were kind of like a mixed bag of everything. And finally, at a certain point, I realized, okay, I want to play death metal, but in like a, our own way of doing it. I didn't want to do death metal in the way that, say, all the other bands at that time were doing it. It was more important to want to create our own style. It's untraditional, especially at then, because we were very like punk influence and hardcore influence with the rough edge of the way we were playing death metal. But it was really important to us to keep that rough edge there, because all the stuff I was listening to were mostly demos or like rough albums and stuff. So I wanted that rough edge to it. I didn't want it to be like a pristine, clean, nice sounding album. It just wasn't our thing, to do something like that. It wasn't my thing. I don't mind it, but it was just like, for us, I wanted that crust to it. It was really important, like almost like a grindcore crust to it or something.
So obviously you were a guitarist for quite a long time. And then in 2004, you randomly picked up the microphone and started also become a vocalist. So how did that happen?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm generally a shy person, so I really like hiding behind the guitar and just coming up with the music and just not being like the focal point. Like, it didn't matter to me. Like, it's funny because so many people know who I am and know my name from the death metal scene and stuff like that. But the reality is I never was that concerned about being well known as a person and being like the celebrity. It was more, I connected with people on a, either a band business level or just a friendship level of wanting to learn more about music and stuff. And like, as a musician in the band, I was happy, like, just being in the back, writing a lot of the music, having a big part of like kind of orchestrating the whole thing and trying to keep the vision alive in the band. Like, those were the parts that were really enjoyable. Like, I had a really hard time, especially back then, out of my shyness, to even want to like look out into the crowd when I played and stuff like that. And just, doing these kind of interviews would have been like torture for me back then as a kid, because it was just so shy. So when it came to a crossroads, our vocalist at the time, Mikey Sayas, quit the band after a tragic incident at a club we played at that time, where he ended up getting into a fight and getting stabbed in the arm real bad. So he ended up quitting the band after his injury and stuff, which was really sad, because besides the injury part being sad, it was sad because we really like the guy, and he's still a good friend to this day. But when something like that happens, people deal with stuff in their own way, and his way was to quit the band and stuff, which I respect. But at that point, Kyle and myself, which Kyle's our long-term drummer, we made a decision. One of us has to sing, and I was really hoping that it would be him. But he's like, I'm not doing it, so you have to do it. And it's like, I'm telling you, I don't know if I can. like I'm totally like, it was like the last thing on my mind to do vocals. Like, it doesn't matter. You have to try and you have to do it. And, even if it sucks, it's like, okay, we're going to have a shitty vocalist for the band, but you got to do it. And, I took it seriously. I mean, I practiced for approximately a year. I don't remember the exact time, but it was practiced in my basement for about a year, trying to just match tones to our recordings and whatnot, to try to just train my voice. And then eventually, it must have been about 2000, was it 2003, I guess. We set up a couple of like special shows that weren't really part of any tour, but we just 3 shows in Mexico. We're going to be like, these are going to be our test shows on me on vocals. And we recorded the shows so I can get kind of an idea of, how I did and stuff like that. So we did the shows, and I listened back to it. It was primitive recordings, but I was like, I listened to it and I was like, it doesn't sound too bad. It's not perfect, but there's actually potential here. And I liked it because it reminded me of like a young Max Cavalera, like, Morbid Visions era, or schizophrenia era type tone. I mean, obviously not as good, but I could tell that like that some of that personality was there in the vocals, and it gave me the confidence that, okay, this is a possible thing that I could accomplish. Like, I didn't even know it was there, because there's certain things as a musician or anything in life where, no matter how hard you try, you're never going to be good at, and people have to face the facts. And I was ready to face the facts if it was going to be good or bad, but I was like, oh, well, actually it's pretty good. But it took still about, I would say at minimum 7 years after that, until I felt 100% comfortable. Like, even when we were touring around 2003, 2004, and I was doing vocals, I was like getting through it, but I wasn't feeling as good as I should. I was trying my best, but I just felt like it wasn't good. It wasn't until about, I don't know, 2010 or 11 or something, where I was just like, this is actually coming together. Like, finally, like, I'm able to do stuff that I feel good about. And I remember the lineup at the time, which was Chuck, Kyle, and Alex, and myself. I know they were all like, rooting me on, because they could tell that things were getting better with the vocals and stuff. And it really helped me having that confidence of all them behind me to be able to, take it to the next level. And I think over the last, since then, last 10 to 13 years or whatever, I've gotten more and more comfortable. And over the last, 10, it's like, I'm 100% comfortable with it. It's like, I know that I could accomplish what I want to accomplish vocal wise, which is a good feeling, because when you're doing stuff, because like, let's put it this way, when we were recording our mid 2000s albums, which was Decimate Christendom and Primordial Domination. The whole time in the studio, I'm doing vocals, and just either Bill Korecki, the engineer, or Kyle, our drummer, was basically like letting me know, like, is this good or bad? Like, I would just do it and be like, I can't tell. I think everything sucks. And they were like, they would go and kind of coach me through it.
So
And
what, sorry to interrupt you, but were you
yeah,
like in the beginning losing your voice, or did you like immediately adapt like the right technique for it so it went like well? For example, with those 3 shows that you did in Brazil, was it like okay
um,
to do 3 shows in
it
a row, or was it like a struggle, or
it was no, it was a struggle. We'll say for the first, let's say 5 years or something, it was really touch and go because I was learning how to do it by trial and error. So after the shows in it was Mexico, actually, the shows, but after the shows in Mexico, the my vocals were shot. Like, I couldn't talk after those shows. I was like, you know,
yeah, that
and
happens if you don't have the right technique for it.
yes, exactly. And I didn't have the right technique at all. But it was just like, at that time, I realized that the best game plan was try to sleep good and recover, and then try not to talk too much the next day. And at the shows, don't talk over the music, because that strains the voice a lot, And I was all learning this by trial and error. And even like we did a European tour, I think it was like Behemoth, Christian, us, and Ragnarok. And we were filming a show in Paris, France, at this famous club, Locomotive. And I fucking lost my voice at that show. We were filming the fucking show, the recording, the audio, everything. And before the show, I'm frogging out with my voice. Like, how the fuck? I was nervous. It was fucked. We did the show, and I tried so hard to do a good job of vocals, but it's like, of course, the song the show that they record was the night I lost my vocals. But this happened quite common on that tour. It was just like, it would be good for a couple of days, and I'd be out for a couple of days, and I would just have to try to sleep as much as possible, try not to talk, and then recover. But I don't think on that tour it ever like 100% recovered, because I just didn't have enough time to recover between shows. It really wasn't until about 2008, we'll say, where I started to, like, it just came to me. I don't remember if anybody really explained it to me, but it was just like, my body just started to, I started to just naturally find ways to deal with it and stuff like that, And now, like I said, now I haven't lost my voice for a long time now, but that's with hanging out with the crowd after the shows, with everything, because first of all, I know once I start pushing it too hard to set back, it's okay,
Yep.
I'm done for the night. Second of all, I've learned, to not push so hard, like even on the high parts, not push so hard on my throat, and try to sing more from the diaphragm instead of just all, just all throat. Like, you can kind of try to control it with the throat, but you don't try to push too hard through the throat, especially with the high stuff. That was what was killing me early on. But now I don't even know how, but I'm able to do the highs now without losing it. Even if I go way more high than I'm usually do, I still don't really lose my voice. I only really lose my voice if I don't do vocals for a while, and like, say I'm doing some demoing vocal takes or something, and it's like the first time I sang in like 3 months or something like that. Yeah, the first day or two is a little rough or whatever, but once I get back into that whole thing, it all kind of strengthens up again. Because I think it just has a lot to do with continue doing it, and it keeps the strength of the vocal cords, and like, whatever, I think it just keeps it stronger if you continually do it than if you stop and do it. Because I could tell the strain when I stop and do it. Like, after I do like a demo vocal night in our studio and I come back home, it's like my wife knows I can hear me like, you know, a little bit. It's not as bad as it was early on, but you can definitely tell even my tone changes. I have generally a higher toned voice normally, but after I do vocals for the first couple nights in the studio or something, I come home and I sound more low endy or something in my voice.
Okay. So when it comes to like warming up for shows, do you have like a warm-up routine that you follow, and has that changed through the years, or has it remained the same that you just go up on stage and start screaming, or how does it work for you?
Well, there was a time when I tried to do warm-ups for my voice. I remember Kyle suggesting it to me a long time ago, and I remember getting like, what was there, Zdenka from the band Estuary. We were playing a show with them, and she was backstage doing like these warm-ups or whatever for her voice. So I asked her, you know, if she could kind of teach me some of what stuff she does or whatever. So I did try doing it, and I did it for a little while, but it never quite stuck. The thing is like now I just go up and I just do it, and I'm able to do it, and I feel the confidence. I might like do a couple of gruffs beforehand, like just like a couple growls and couple screams and stuff like that, just to kind of get some of the cobwebs off. But I don't really have a routine. Like I noticed, what's his name? The singer from Bell Witch, the drummer. Fuck, I can't remember his name. We just toured with him. I feel. But anyway, I remember he had like a routine of doing like these vocal things too and stuff like that. And it just made me think, and this was only about less than a year ago we did the tour with him. And I was just like, oh, Jesse was his name. And it made me think like, huh, yeah, I haven't even thought about doing warm-up vocals for like years, you know? And I'm thinking to myself, maybe it's a good idea or whatever, but I said, you know what, fuck it, because it's working this way where I just go up every night and just belt it out, and it just seems to work. And if I do notice that it stops working, that's when I'm going to do it. But I think what benefits me to some extent is that vocals in general get lower as you age. And so I'm getting higher up on age. So it's like getting those lower vocals is actually easier for me than getting the higher vocals. But the higher vocals, I don't really do that much. And I've been doing a couple projects where I've been singing higher, growly higher, like screechy, and I still notice that I'm not losing my voice. So it's like I'm just kind of going with it, you know, at this point, because it seems to all be working. But you know, if I did get some good advice from somebody, I would definitely try it if it could improve. But I've been super happy with the performance of it over the last, especially the last, you know, since the pandemic and stuff. Every time I play, I listen to the tone. I'm like, wow, this is really good. And it's really nice to feel that way, because you work so hard at something and then finally you're to a point where you're like, okay, it's sounding the way I want it to. It's very rewarding. It's good, nice to take a victory lap a little bit.
So are there like some foods or drinks that you wouldn't rather have before the show, that you have felt that they affect your vocal cord somehow, or on the opposite side, something that helps you with the growling and singing?
Well, let's say one thing that I don't do on tour that I did more when I was younger was I don't drink. I mean, let's say I don't drink excessively. I'm not like a non-drinker. I'm not like a sober non-drinker. I just, on tour, my goal is I want to give people the best performance of that I can give them. And I'm not that concerned about drinking. Like I'm fine with it, but it's not so important that I would risk something that is really important to me for drinking. So even if I do have a drink or something, I keep it to a minimum where I'm just having like, you know, maybe a shot or two, or maybe a beer or two or something a night. And this is still in a rare occurrence that I even do, but when I do, I keep it very minimum, because that is probably the worst thing I could do to my vocals. I mean, I don't smoke, so that's not a problem. But when it comes to drinking, if I drink too much, I end up straining my vocal cords more. So that's one thing I don't do. What I do try to do is I try to hydrate a lot, either drink a lot of water, a lot of, like teas and stuff like that. That really helps. Um, you know, I know I don't know if it helps vocal wise, but I like to eat bananas backstage, at least one or something before playing. It just loosens me up in general. I don't know if it really helps the vocals, but it definitely helps before going on stage to get that potassium in you. And it just helps you from season up. And I think it like helps with keeping you hydrated properly because a lot of times I used to get like just cramps in my hands and stuff from playing, which is probably from not drinking enough water or something like that. So, but yeah, in general, it just trying to hydrate, I think, is probably the best thing. Because I've noticed, like, in situations where I'm not hydrated properly before playing, I could feel it a little bit on the end. Like, at a certain point of the show, I could feel like a weird, like my vocal cords aren't reacting as good as they were earlier on in the show. And that's usually because I'm sweating too much and I'm not rehydrating enough or something.
So obviously you've released a lot of albums with Incantation. Are there like some specific albums that you could pinpoint where you felt that you have taken like a big step forward as a vocalist?
Huh. Well, I mean, Decimate Christendom, the first one, just for the fact of actually doing vocals on that album,
For
that was
sure.
something I never thought in my life that I would do. It was the furthest thing away. So that was a great accomplishment. I know that some people slag the vocals on that album, but I actually think they're pretty damn good, especially considering that I was coached through the whole way and I was not in the comfort zone where I could make a decision if it was good or bad. But listening back, I think it's really good. I just think that, at least for Incantation, the standard was put so high with people like Craig Pillard, Daniel Curchado, and Mike Sayers that, because maybe I wasn't as good as those three guys, people looked at it as a negative towards there, but I looked at it as big triumph, and I actually like the songs on that album a lot too. But anyway, that was a big thing for me. As far as it's hard to say, I think I'm really proud of my vocal performance on the Unholy Deification album, the new one. I felt really confident from that one from the get-go. Sect, I feel pretty good. Sect of All Divinities. It's hard to say. I think recording wise, I started feeling better vocal wise on the Vanquish and Vengeance album, which was a 2000, I think 11 or 12. That was the first album I did where I felt really good at it. And I, even though I still got coached through it, some of the vocals, I felt like I didn't need it as much. Like it was more of I knew this was a bad take. I know I could do better than this. I started feeling comfortable. So I guess Vanquish and Vengeance was the first one that was a turning point. But I think for me, Unholy Deification is like me really getting like this was like the game plan I had from the beginning till the end. That came out the way I wanted to vocal wise. And I didn't have a lot of coaching suggestions and stuff, but it wasn't something that I didn't need the coaching. I didn't feel like I needed it. I felt like I came into myself. I knew what I wanted to do on the songs. I was able to accomplish it, which is a nice feeling, like I said, to do that. But yeah, that's a long version of it.
So are there like some new things that you tried out on the upcoming album? Anything that you haven't done before?
I mean, it's hard to say because I've been doing more vocal tones live, like trying to capture some of the effects and stuff. Like we have an old song, we have Deliverance Horrific Prophecies at the end. There was like vocals they were all done pretty lowish, but they were done at different speeds on the tape machine at the time. So they sound higher and lower. It's all mixed up together in some weird twisty thing or whatever. And like live, I try to capture some of those vibes that wasn't even really done vocally without effects or whatever, but I try to capture those effects live and stuff. And like a lot of I try to capture some of like the older tones of Craig, which are lower, try to capture some of the tones that were closer to Daniel Crociato, which were more mid-rangey and a little bit high-endy. Now I try to throw in more attitude and more maybe mid tempos and mid sounds and high sounds into the vocals, but really the sweet spot for Incantation is just having those killer gutturals that just sound like really menacing, vocal wise. But
Agree.
I have done stuff like on the Beast of Revelation album. I've done a lot more of like these high screechy type things and these kind of like, it'd almost be like almost an Attila type vibe to the vocals or whatever from Mayhem, where it just has more like, yeah, like these kind of things like that or whatever to it, which I tried adding to it. And there's another project that I'm helping out with that I can't talk about now that I did some vocals for, which were way more on the mid highs range vocal wise, that I'm really proud of, not just for the cause, but also because it was something that I never done before. I never did these high, like I never did highs. I say the primary vocal parts always been like a tag or a word or, some kind of scream vibe or something like that,
I have two questions left, and the second last one is that what were your parents' reactions when they heard you started screaming your lungs out for the first time?
Well, by that time they were pretty used to it. Let's just say the first time when our second album, Mortal Throne Nazarene, came out, my uncle was having like some kind of fancy family gathering, and they thought it'd be a great idea to play that CD at the gathering.
Most likely not.
I was like, I really don't think it's a good.
Oh,
it's not
God.
really a party album. So it was really uncomfortable as fuck. They were like, they didn't even know what those sounds were. Like, they're like, is that even vocal? There's vocals on this song? Is it just instrumental? They don't even know what was happening. So, and by the time I was doing vocals, I don't think that they I guess they weren't probably that surprised. My dad was already passed away by the time I did vocals. My mom was more like just, my mom at that point, she knew that music was my calling in life, and that I think she wasn't surprised that I did everything I had to do to try to get my musical point across, even though she has no understanding of why I do like this kind of style. She grew up in the 50s and 60s or whatever, but the fact is that I think she was always proud of me because she knew that this was something that was honest and in my heart, and not it was just something that was more of a part of me. It was important enough where I dedicate my life to, and the success that she did see I had before she passed away was something that she was always really proud of and stuff. But as far as music wise goes, I guess she could probably pass on it,
Yeah, for sure. Last question. Any kind of advice that you would like to give to a young metal vocalist who is just about to start the journey? Anything that comes into your mind?
The most important thing is that just if you want to, just go for it, and don't stop. Keep trying. Don't let the all the negatives and all the hardships stop you if you truly believe in something, because anybody that's gotten any success in the music industry has been through a lot of bullshit to get there, and a lot of stuff you have to deal with. And if you really believe in it, it's really honest to you, it's worth it to fight through all that stuff. And when there's no guarantees that you're ever going to be successful or not, but I'm always grateful for, you know, the little wins or just anything that's positive that happens. I appreciate the fuck out of it. It's not something that it's nothing ever expected. It's always appreciated. That's super important. And besides that is just, you know, if I had to say vocal wise, just try to, if you're going to sing low or whatever, at least, I guess anyway, try to sing from the diaphragm and just regulate it from your vocal cords. Don't try to over push on the vocal cords. And I think the most important thing is just got to practice a lot and really build up your technique and just the throat muscles and stuff. It really needs to be, it takes a while to get to where you want. I mean, like I said, it took me about a year to get to even a starting point where I could go out live to do it. And that took another 5 years. I mean, some people, yeah, they're assholes and they just jump right into it and they're great. But you know, we all don't get that. We're all not like, you know, I don't know, like a Ron James Dio or whoever, you know, just goes up there and just like, you know, smokes weed, parties, and goes on stage, sings like a bird. Like, fuck you, you know, it's like these people are just too good. And there's a lot of death metal singers that were like that too. I mean, that's the way Craig Pillard was when he joined the band. He just like came to practice. We asked him if he could do vocals one day. He was a little apprehensive, but we said yeah. And then he came and he's been doing fucking great ever since. I'm just like, asshole. It's like, I bust my ass to do this, and I can only strive to get close to where you're at. It's like, motherfucker. So, you know, even if you don't think you could do it, you just try it until you could do the best you can. And even if you can't do it exactly how you want to, there's sometimes having your own personality in it and the way you do it is a good thing, because music to me is always the best when you put part of your heart and soul into it and not just try to mimic what other people are doing, but put your own personality into it. And that goes for music and for vocals, in my opinion.
Thanks a lot for doing this interview with me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for dealing with my crap.
No, all good.